This is the self-portrait project you'll be working on today. The first thing I want you to think about is, how do you see yourself? A symbolic self-portrait is about revealing more about what's inside of you. So unlike a realistic self-portrait, you're trying to share the way that you might live outside of school or things that you want people to know about you. But it's also just as important to think about what you don't want to share with people. So I want you to take a minute or two to think about the things that you would like to share with people and the things that you do not want to share with people. During today's class, what we're going to do is, the first thing will be that I am going to present some visual examples of symbolic self-portraits for you. And then I'm actually going to have you guys go into breakout rooms and discuss symbolic self-portraits. So you might have noticed that I asked you to look over an article before you came back to class today, and I was hoping that it would help you to be more comfortable using your cameras so you could talk to each other more face to face. But if you didn't get a chance to look at the article and you're not quite ready to turn on your cameras, that's okay. I do want you to still think about trying to get yourselves ready to turn on your cameras. But for about 30 minutes, I'm going to give you guys time to talk to each other in some pretty small groups. That includes the students who are in class and the students that are online. Once you're done talking about the presentation, I'm going to have you guys come back and meet with me for more instructions about starting the project. Once you have talked to me and we're done talking about how you're going to do your symbolic self-portrait, I'm going to have you get started on brainstorming and actually starting the rough draft for your project. So just so you know what we're doing is, when we look at each of the slides ahead, you'll be looking at the slides. I'll have you think about them, and I want you to think about the different styles and media and medium that are used in each of them. I also want you to notice that all of them have a little bit of different symbolism that reveal the personality, the life, or maybe the interests of the artists that are depicted in the portrait. Every artwork is different, and I want you to notice how the artist was focused on showing their own portrait in a unique way. If you look at these three different portraits, you might notice that in one, there's an image of a young woman. It's kind of realistic in some ways, but it's very stylized with line. You can also see that there's figures behind her. I don't know how many of you are familiar with anime, but I see this figure a lot in some of the older animes and even some new ones. So you can maybe guess who that is. And then in the bottom right, you can see that the face is actually made out of trees, and it's only halfway in. And finally, in the upper right, you can see the self-portrait is very symbolic in that the person themselves is not in the portrait, just the objects that the person uses. So there's a lot of ways you can show yourself. You can show yourself through the things you like. You can show yourself kind of symbolically through what you believe. And you can also show yourself through the objects that you use and what they mean to you, or how you see that. So depending on what things mean to you, that can be a way to show yourself in a self-portrait. In these three images, these are more symbolic. On the left is a very famous painting. It's a surrealist painting. And you can see it's most likely based on a dream. So sometimes we can make self-portraits based on the things that we dream about, or the things that we imagine, or that we imagine about ourselves. In the upper right, we see a portrait where there's a lot of design, pattern, and imagery that's symbolic of probably culture. You can make an inference of cultural patterns within this artwork. So that is something that was important to the artist. And then at the bottom, you can see another image where the person may be less important than the art they make, because you can see all the different artwork. And then the portrait is of one of those mannequins, and they're kind of blank, right? So that's a very interesting kind of reversal from I'm going to make myself an individual where maybe they're more focused on making their art speak for them. You might have seen these before where the person's silhouette is in the picture. It's a photograph. And then the photograph shows something different inside the silhouette than in the surroundings. And so maybe they're revealing something about themselves that's different than the world around them. Maybe how they feel. This one has a light inside and they're lifting their arm up. That's usually a sign of some kind of like uplifting spirit or raising of a belief or something. So it's very symbolic. The light, of course, is symbolic. And then the kind of grayness around them has a different kind of feel to it. And then here again, you have that mannequin. I thought this was interesting because I saw the mannequin in a few of the self-portraits. So I thought I would bring this one in because here we have a mannequin again. And the world is very different around the mannequin, showing maybe how they feel about things and less about themselves. And yet that's still just, that says a lot about what they want to say about themselves and what they want to say about what they see. But it still says a lot about the artists themselves. These two contrasting images show one where there's a mask without the face and lots of different pieces of information with text. So the blankness of the person shows the mask on the outside, and maybe they're just saying a lot and we don't really know what's happening on the inside. And on the other one, you see the outline of the person and a lot is happening on the inside and they're also saying something on the outside. So maybe there's like a tension between what's happening in the person and outside of the person. But that same tension exists on the left picture because in a way, in both images, we don't actually know for sure what's happening if we were to know that person. If we were to look at the inside of the person or the outside, because in real life, the person on the right, you don't know what's actually happening. We can see it in the picture, we get to know a little bit more. And the one on the left, they're telling us, you won't know me one way or the other. You can't know me from the inside, whether you're looking at my picture or whether you're looking at me in real life. So there's a kind of a tension in both of those. These are three very different examples of ways you can express yourself. One is a photograph of a young woman. She's showing what she does, what she cares about. On the upper right is similar to what we did, except in this case, she's showing herself more like an anime character. And the bottom is like the young woman, she put herself in the character of an avatar. So all three of these have their own distinct style of self-portraiture. And all of them show the intent of the artist, which is very important. And yet you will know probably in real life, if you put the picture next to the person, who they are. This is very skillful work. In fact, I'm quite sure the photograph of the young woman posing took some time to set up. She had to think it through. There was some process in getting that photograph to be the way it is, because you don't just get a photograph like that without putting some effort into it and really thinking about how it's going to happen. And then obviously you can see the one of the young woman in the upper right is pretty similar to what we did, except she didn't alter her photograph. And I don't know, the avatar might look simple, but if you draw that on your own or paint that on your own, that is a complex process. And to really think through what is it going to look like and how will I make it mine, if you're not just copying it from the internet, that is really something to be celebrated, because you're going through that process of thinking, how will I symbolize myself in this particular medium? So that's important to think about if that's something you're considering. I really like these two images. They're striking in the sense that they're really similar, but they're really different. The one on the left is just, to me, so lovely because it shows this young person in all these different kinds of modes. And also she uses quite a bit of text in her artwork, which I love, but she also shows these little drawings in her artwork. So she's got this, she's writing, she's drawing, she's thinking, she's doing a lot of things in her art that show that she's a writer and an artist. She likes music, she likes to write, she's showing what her writing looks like. So she clearly had some thoughts about how she would do it. You might notice too that she actually did her drawing on newspaper, so that's very cool. And then I think on the right there's some commonality in terms of like the patterning. So I paired these together because while there isn't so much writing on the right hand image, there are these little pictures in the artwork that kind of made me think about the other one. So you got these pictures at the grocery store, and you've got this patterning throughout. And while there isn't a lot of writing, it's the texture that I'm seeing that kind of is reminiscent. So there's this kind of a relationship between the two, but also the thoughtfulness of the face in the figure on the right reminded me a lot of the figure on the left at the top. So there's this there was a way of like relating the two in the composition. It wasn't exactly the same, but it was similar, and yet you get these two very different feelings from the artwork that represent these two different people. So I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes people overlook the really impactful necessity for expressive drawing. So I wanted to also include that in this presentation. So if you look over on the left, this is a pencil on paper drawing, but the shading and the expression, the lines, the way it's done, you can do a lot with pencil and paper and your image to really show the kind of person you are. Clearly this person is like a character. He likes to like maybe be surprising. He likes to have fun. He wants you to know he can draw really well. He wants you to know that he is willing to take a risk with his artwork, and he is showing that in his artwork, and he's using pencil and paper to do it. That is totally fine. You can do that. If that's what you've got to work with, that's what you've got to work with. But try to like push the boundaries a little bit so that your artwork is expressive and symbolic. On the right, we have a person that's showing that they have more than one emotion. Maybe their face is a little, I think of as like kind of stoic or hard to read sometimes. Maybe he looks really serious, but there's a lot going on behind the surface. So he's showing in his artwork that he's not just one kind of a person. So he's got more than one image, and he's sharing that maybe he suffered a lot, and that's why he looks the way he looks. And so he included that in his artwork, and he wants you to focus on that part of his personality. There may be many other aspects of his personality that are just as important, but in this particular artwork, that's what he wants you to focus on symbolically, is maybe the suffering and the maybe like the kind of anger that he feels because of that suffering. So there's sometimes you can pick something that you want your art to be about. It doesn't have to represent your whole self. They can just be like some specific part of who you are. And that's also an important thing to think about. Like I said at the beginning, what do you want to share and what don't you want to share? What matters to you? And that's, because it's one piece of art. It's about you. It's symbolic, but it can also be like a slice of time in your life that you're just kind of picking, and this is it right now. Or it could be more broad. So it just kind of depends on where you are. So that's something to think about. So these are the last two I wanted to show to you. To me, they were kind of funny. They had the dresses, but they had there was either no face or the face was very cartoony. They include a lot of contrast, and they include a lot of pattern and movement. There's emphasis on the right, obviously, with the non-functional chainsaw. It looks like it's got some kind of fuzziness or something that doesn't make it sharp. It's just definitely, these were two kind of fun ending symbolism pieces. Like, what do they even mean? So they're definitely talking about feminism, they're talking about style, they're talking about fashion, body image. There's a lot going on here with both of these. And so not showing your face can be a powerful way to take control away from the viewer, and also prove a point. Or changing the way your face looks is also something that artists will do at times. Like, they will refuse to look at the viewer in the portrait, or they will like in the one on the right, they will not let you see their face. So there are like reasons that artists do that, and it has to do with sort of like a denial of privilege, and there's valid reasons for doing that. So again, what do you want to share and what don't you want to share? Do you want people to see something? Do you not want them to see something? So consider that when you're making your artwork. Consider that when you're thinking about what you want to symbolize. And I am going to be dismissing you shortly to your breakout rooms with just a few students so you can talk about things. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to use this. I'll have the slide presentation in the assignment for you so that you can look at it and talk about things. So it's time to get started, and I'm going to be putting you into your breakout rooms. I want you to discuss how you can symbolize your personality, your interests, or other parts of your life in a visual self-portrait. Now, if you want to start drawing while you're talking to each other, so when I'm saying discuss, I mean talk to each other. If you want to start sketching during this time, that's fine. I'll be giving you more information when you come back. So I'll have you guys talk together for between 20 and 30 minutes, depending on how much time we have left. But I do want you guys to try to talk to each other. So don't just sit silently because you're in a breakout room and you don't think you should talk. I'll be popping in and out to see how you're doing. And hopefully you guys will be feeling more comfortable to turn your cameras on if you're in a smaller group and talk to each other. But yeah, so talk about how you can show your personality, your interests, or other parts of your life in a self-portrait. And brainstorm about how you can sketch. If you want to start drawing while you're talking, that's fine. And I will make this PowerPoint available to you, just a silent version of it in the assignment, okay?